1, 2, tree, bird, river, sky, clouds, canoes, mud. Just a few words to describe.
Just a few
to describe what it's like to go riverboat camping, river canoe camping, which is what I did. And I'm really proud of it. Hi, this is Will Cates in Austin, Bagwell, and this is the Chatcast.
Chatcast.
The writer's strike hit us hard. We were gone for a little while.
Yeah, just a little.
Without writers, where would this show be without our writing?
Way much further along than it is currently. We didn't plan to take all of June off, but that's just kind of the way it fell. We had a lot of sickness in my family. My daughter was sick. My wife and I were both sick multiple times. You had a wondrous adventure and then became sick as well afterwards.
Debatable what caused it. Could have been drinking river water for 3 days. Could have been
probably
Burger King chicken sandwich. Could have been a mix of both.
Okay. All right. Well, cool. So Will's already given away the theme of today's podcast.
I couldn't help it.
That's totally fine. This is actually going to be a 2-part podcast. This is our first one back in over a month. We've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
But I want to drop some facts real quick for Will and our audience here.
Go ahead, fax machine.
Yes. So, if I remember correctly, 5% of all podcasts do 10 episodes. This is going to be our 10th episode. Technically, 10th and 11th, 10th episode, 2 parts.
Top percentile.
1% of that 5% do 10 episodes. Wow. Oh wait, no. What did I say? I'm sorry. I got the first one wrong. I got the first one wrong. I'm so sorry.
There it was.
Scratch all that. The first one was 5% of all podcasts do 3 episodes.
Yes.
And 1% of that 5% do 10. Wow. So we're in the top 1%. Let's go, baby. Let's go.
You know, I always knew I'd make it to the top 1%.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about camping. And if I remember correctly, you said that this trip, your canoe camping trip, was your first time camping ever.
First time ever in my life. I've never camped. The closest thing to camping I've done was when I went with my family to like rent a cabin on a campground, and we were inside in beds, just in the woods though.
Right.
And that was when I was probably like 10 or 11.
Okay.
I had only ever done hiking trips during the day. You know, we didn't stay the night.
Right, like a day trip.
Yeah, I did tons of hiking, tons of kayaking on lakes, especially during college. And everything went smooth. The only rough spot was when I fell out of a kayak in the middle of the lake once. And
Canoe or kayak?
Kayak.
2 different things. Okay.
Yep, definitely. It wasn't a canoe. It was a kayak, and it was it filled up with water though, so it was a canoe probably.
Well, they both can fill up with water.
Okay, then it was a kayak.
Okay. Yeah.
They can fill up with water
both
too.
Can, yeah.
Yeah. That's what happened.
Okay.
So I fell out in the middle of the lake. First of all, this is an old story. Panicked, threw myself on it, and then it went under some and started filling up with water. And it was funny because I'm flailing around, and then my buddy Nate, who was with us on the recent trip, he was like, Will, calm down. I'm like, what? He's like, you're wearing a life jacket. And I'm like, oh. And then I just started floating, and I was like, okay.
No, obviously it did the trick. So what was...
Yeah, all right.
Why canoe?
Why?
So real quick, I want to just say, canoe camping is actually a very technical kind of camping. I'm just going to be very honest with you. That's not an easy thing to do. Mm-hmm. So where did the idea of this come from?
Well, Nate was always the one that would like come up with the ideas for trips. He probably sends me and my buddies ideas for trips almost once or twice a week. He's awesome at planning stuff, and he's also just really great at just going out and doing stuff. Like this man is he's always moving. I don't think I've seen him sit on a couch longer than 10 minutes my whole life. Nice. He's a go-getter. And so he, about a year ago, said he wanted all of us to go on this river canoe trip in this area on the Neuse River called the Let Loans.
Okay.
So anyone who looks up the Let Loans, online, you'll find that it earned its name because people used to say it's best to just leave it alone.
Yep,
Don't
leave it
go
alone.
there
Yep.
because there's snakes, there's bears, there's barracudas. I mean, all sorts of.
I mean, there probably are barracudas, but they're not going to bother you.
Nar? Had never heard of a nar.
Yeah,
but that's
never heard
probably
of a
the
nar.
coolest name
Super
for a
cool
river
fish, too,
creature. I think I saw one. I saw something really big in the water, and it was like it was a fish, but it was like shockingly big, and it was just kind of like moving.
They look super aggressive, and they can be, but like most of the time they just leave you alone.
Yeah, because we rode by, we canoed by one guy who was fishing, and he said, he was like, "How long y'all been out here?" We were like, 2 days, and his eyes widened. He was like, 2 days, and then we were like, "Do we have to worry about anything?" And he was like, "Maybe some gnar, but that's it." I was very happy.
Which is like, if you're from the coast, it's like, gotta look out for those gnar waves, man.
See,
dude, there's so gnar out there right now.
When
just
he
ripping
said,
and shredding, bro.
I thought he was talking about rapids. I was like, sweet.
Right.
We're
That's my
getting
point.
to some gnarly
Not
rapids.
on the noose. The noose. So for those of you who don't know the noose in North Carolina, it's actually it's got a really bad reputation for just being a very dirty body of water.
Yeah, I was drinking it a lot.
Yeah,
probably shouldn't have.
Been.
No.
I mean, did you filter it?
Yeah,
Oh,
I bought one of those fancy filter bottles.
You're more than likely fine.
Yeah. I went all in on that filter bottle. I was like, I'm going to trust this like it is the greatest invention.
Yeah.
And for some reason, we thought, bottled water is heavy and a nuisance. We can't bring a bunch of bottled water. So we didn't do that. And we instead all got these bottles that filter the water. You literally just dip it in the
like
river.
Sawyer's.
Yeah, that's the type I have.
Yep.
My one buddy Grant, who came with us, he actually works on base he's got like more of an office job, but he had this really sweet military water pack with the
Camelback.
straw.
Camelback.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So he had that, and he had filled that up at the start of the trip. And it was so good. Like every time when we were sick of river water, he was like, "You can take a swig."
So
of the good stuff.
I guess I want to kind of get the
Yeah. I'm
logistics
jumping
here.
around a little bit.
No, you're fine. So you guys were out there for how many days and nights?
We were there 3 days, 2 nights.
3 days, 2 nights. Okay. So you put in what on a Friday? You were there Friday night.
Yeah.
Saturday night, got done on Sunday.
Saturday was a full day of rowing. So Friday, pretty laid back, rowed for the afternoon. All day Saturday rowed, and then kicked it into high gear early Sunday morning to get to our exit point on time. How
long was the trip?
We went 50 miles.
I was going to say, over water, it's going to be pretty far.
It was it was actually short of our goal. Our goal was like 60.
Okay.
And we learned about someone called a river angel.
Yep.
And they're so cool.
There's a such thing as trail angels.
Yeah. This guy, Ernest, was like, hey, man, if y'all are tired and you can't make the trip, just pull into my property and you can call a Uber or U-Haul and just end it early. And we were like, we're going to have to do that.
Yeah. So trail angels are very well known on the Appalachian Trail. And trail angels are these volunteers. They're just people. Like I say volunteer. There's not like an organization or anything. It's just these good people who will go out to these parking areas that are along the Appalachian Trail, and they will do specific ones. Like if you're ever going to do a hike on the Appalachian Trail, especially a through hike, so starting in Georgia and ending in Maine, the whole thing's called a through hike, and there's tons of information, tons of books, maps, web forums, everything. And you can plan your stops at these different parking spots or parking lots, or even at shelters that are on the AT. And there will be trail angels there, and they're just people. They're just good people who are there with
can be lifesavers too,
and drinks and stuff like. Just good people, and they just want to help and that kind of thing.
We never even met the guy.
Just
spoke to him on the phone the whole
time. You never meet any of them. You never until you actually meet them in person.
Yeah.
But trail angels, in your case, a river angel. Yeah, it's a really cool concept that most people don't even know it exists, because a lot of people aren't going to go hiking, or in your case, paddling. So you're out there for 2 days, for 3 days, 2 nights.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, middle of nowhere. What was the food and water situation? So you said something earlier that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, where you were like, Yeah, we felt like bottled water would be too heavy. Too heavy for what? Because you're not hiking.
I know.
You're
We weren't hiking at all.
You're paddling. So
And the canoes hold a tremendous amount of weight.
oh yeah, absolutely they do. For sure. Yeah.
I don't know. We thought like, and it wasn't even something we spoke about a lot. It was, and what's funny is I got mine as just a precautionary thing. I was like, I'll get the bottle just in case.
Yep. Good idea.
And even though we tossed around the idea of how bottled water would be possibly a nuisance to load in the canoe and stuff, I kind of thought I'd show up and we'd have it anyway. I am not the best when it comes to communicating. So the group chat was firing off for months, and I would chime in like, hey man, I'm excited. And then they'd be like, all right, Will. And then that, I should have been paying a little more closer attention because I would have brought water. So river water is one of those things where like, I knew I should fill it up probably where it's running, where it's moving.
Yeah, where it's moving. Absolutely.
So I did do that.
Good.
But after like a day into it and you've been drinking river water, you start getting the mentality of like, this is kind of gross because it tastes fine. But you're thinking, man, I'm drinking a lot of river water.
Especially Sawyer filters, they're gonna get rid of most of the microbes. Like there's very few issues. Not to say there's none.
I even cleaned it with the thingy-mo-bobber.
Yeah, so you're more than likely fine. Mm-hmm. You could have boiled it. That could have been something that you guys did that
once.
Too. Okay. Yep. That could be something that you guys do as well. What did you guys do in the way of food? Yeah.
We brought a hot plate, which was really helpful.
Wait.
Yeah.
You brought a hot plate, but you thought bottled water was too heavy?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
And
it totally makes sense, yeah. I'm going to critique you.
We marinated.
I'm going to critique you.
I hope so.
I'm going to critique Will's friends. Sorry, Will's friends.
Oh, no.
But
it gets better.
Go ahead. Okay.
We marinated Grant, the one with the camel pack. He marinated chicken and brought chicken along. That was really good.
And cooler, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Was there ice in the schooler?
Maybe it was that chicken that got me. No.
Was there ice in the schooler?
Oh, yeah.
Ice is heavier than water? Or no.
Wait, iced water probably is heavier.
Let me look.
But isn't technically ice got air in it? So would... Wait a minute. That's very interesting. If you got a big old cooler full of water and then a big cooler with ice water.
I was wrong. Ice weighs less than water.
I don't believe that.
Yeah. Forget you, scientists.
How many times have you carried a cooler filled with ice and water and you're like, this is the heaviest thing in the world?
Well, when you stop and think about it.
That's because the beer is in it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. When that ice melts, the volume of water isn't the same as the amount of water
in it.
It's less water.
Well, hold up.
So if I filled up this cup, I've got a cup on the desk right here.
Yeah.
If I filled up this cup with just ice and then took one of equal size and filled it up with just water, when the ice melts, it's going to be less volume in this cup than the one filled with water.
Okay. I fill up a glass halfway with ice and water.
Okay.
And that ice melts. Mm-hmm. When I come back, there's going to be more water in the cup.
Oh, well, yes, of course there's going to be more water. But the mistake that you're making and you're thinking is that it's going to go from half full of ice and water to completely full of just water. It's not.
It's not.
No, it'll probably go to like 3/4.
Okay.
And it's obviously there's some escaping through condensation on the outside as well.
So in that, when you look at it like that, a cooler full of ice is going to be heavier after it melts.
I mean, after it melts, I wouldn't necessarily say that either.
Yeah,
because the amount of water is going to be proportional to the amount of ice.
Wow,
that was in it already.
That's wild.
That's anyway.
That's half.
That's the only science portion of this podcast, and I'm sure it was wrong.
I'm a half full guy, not a half empty guy.
Okay, so you guys had prepared meals.
Chicken. We brought peppers and mushrooms and some onions, and we did shish kebabs.
I was going to say, but that's just one meal though. That's
it was one meal.
Okay,
we did s'mores twice. We did.
That's not a meal.
Yeah,
s'mores is not a meal. For those who've never camped before, s'mores is not a meal.
No, not at all. But it's yummy.
Oh yes.
What did we do? We did one morning we did muffins, English muffins. And we also they were bagels. We did bagels with peanut butter on them. We did what else for dinner?
So a lot of prepared foods, like no like freeze dried foods or anything like that, or is everything just like
I
in
brought
containers?
Granola bars,
That's not freeze dried food.
Oh, okay.
Was it like a true in a freeze dried bag camping meal or anything like that?
Nope.
Okay, and that's fine. I'm just trying to get.
But that's a good idea.
To bring weight, some, yeah, absolutely, yeah,
because
stupid light.
Gosh, because everything we brought was either crammed in our clothing bags, like little snacks. Like I brought jerky and I brought the granola bars. Dylan brought, what did he bring? That was so good. Yeah, little things. Nate brought clam chowder.
Oh God!
which is
that would not be my first choice for camping.
Well, you know what's really funny is no. Yeah, it was clam chowder. And what's really wild, it was New England clam chowder, and it was the second day out there, and he started fixing it. And I'm like, hey, man, I mean, I wouldn't mind sharing some of that with you. And he said, oh, you wouldn't mind sharing some of my food?
Yeah, first
I
of all,
wanted some of that chowder.
That is horrible camping etiquette.
Horrible.
So
hey, I wouldn't mind sharing your food.
Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing: when you're out in a situation, when you're out in an environment where you're super tired, there's a lot of
adrenaline, sort of.
Not just adrenaline, but you're putting forth a lot of effort.
Yeah.
You'll find that the personality that you have is completely different to when you're in a comfortable.
Oh my gosh.
Position. So if you came to me, like, let's say we're camping, and you came to me and was like, hey, I'd like to share some of your food. I'm like, I don't care. But where's your food? My question is, where's your food?
They ragged on me. They ragged hard.
Good.
I paid for that statement.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
He would, every time someone pulled out food, no. Like let's say I pulled out a granola bar of. Never failed. Dylan or someone would be like, hey, well, I wouldn't mind sharing some of that granola. It was funny.
That's so good.
Well, you mentioned your personality when you're camping. Mm-hmm. I learned that mine is I'm really big on positive reinforcement. I'm the guy in the group that's like, man, guys, we did really good today. Y'all, today was amazing. I just kept talking about how awesome everything was. Cool. Or I was a big planner where I was like, guys, I think if we hit the river at like 7, we would be. But I rarely was talking about the moment. I was either talking about what we just accomplished or what's coming up, and it felt like the whole trip was either preparing for the next thing we were going to do, or talking about something that just happened. And it was weird. It felt like I never really was still and in the moment, except when I was in my tent going to sleep.
So why do you think that was?
I think it's just because
all
of it was
like
new.
That?
No, normally I'm the guy that's like very like comfortable and zen, or like you'll find me just staring off at the trees. I thought it'd be more of that. Instead, it was like if I was standing a lot, I was thinking about like, okay, I'm going to go
standing a lot. There's a distinct lack of chairs when you're camping.
I did bring a stool. One moment by the fire, when we were doing the s'mores, where all of us were tired that night. It was our first night there. We had set up our fire, and set up our tents. And at that moment, and we were eating, and we were all so tired and so hungry. We were eating quietly. That was probably the most relaxed I was the whole trip. But other than that, I felt like my mind was thinking, okay, well, what do you need to be doing right now to prepare? Yeah. What do you, I was very conscious of like, my role there, and like what I need to do to make sure I don't get eaten by a bear. I was really hyper aware of our food. I was like, we got to pack it up. Bears.
Totally. So I'm going to give you a little bit of insight here. Yeah. That's how all of our ancestors lived every single day. Yeah. Like we have such a comfortable life. And when you get into the situations when you are camping, and I've got any number of stories I can tell you, but I just want to hear your experience. First of all, but when you stop and really realize that's how life used to be versus how it is now, you kind of get some insight on yourself. You're like, oh, dang, like we're pretty hardy. We're pretty hardy people.
Coming back and plopping on the couch felt a lot different afterwards.
So I'm going to skip around here. So when you got done, when you're at the end of your trip, what was the first thing you ate?
Yeah, we'll definitely bounce around.
I've got a follow-up question after that.
All right, so I conquered this river. just a tremendous amount of distance. 50 miles in a car versus 50 miles in a canoe is a lot.
That's impressive.
It's a big difference. And so I was very proud of myself. We had just stepped out of the river, and half of us stayed with the boat with the canoes, and the other half went to go get a U-Haul. Because we had to carry the canoes back to where we launched, and which is about a 45-minute drive. And my buddies were like, "Where are we going to eat?" And I said, "Let's go to like a diner or like a Waffle House, sit down and eat food together and relax and eat food."
Yep.
They're like, "Oh, dude, a Burger King is right on the way to the U-Haul." And I was like, I really don't want to eat Burger King first thing out of the river. I'd rather eat some. And so I was mostly thinking it. I did say to them, I was like, I don't know. And then they're like, once you start eating it, you'll love it. And I was like, okay. I should have fought it more. Anyway, I was like, everyone got like burgers, but I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna do a chicken sandwich. And I never get sick. I'm one of those guys that'll eat just trash and never get sick. I inhaled that chicken sandwich. And on the ride, we immediately get in the U-Haul and we leave. And probably like 10 minutes in the U-Haul ride, I just felt like crap, dude. But it was I thought to myself, oh, it's motion sickness, because I get bad motion sickness. And as soon as we got out of the U-Haul, I puked. I threw up bad, and then I crawled into my car and I started the 2-hour trip, not 3.5. It's not that far. 2-hour trip back home. That 2-hour trip took me almost 4 hours because I pulled over and threw up maybe like 7 times.
You were probably super high levels of dehydration.
Yeah.
Super high levels of dehydration.
Because on the third day, I was like, I spent a lot of time on the river. My time on the river on the third day felt like home stretch. We did it, and I wasn't as conscious of my body. Yeah. The other 2 days, I was guzzling water, but our last day, a half day, I was not drinking enough.
The problem most people make when they are trying to hydrate is they hydrate during the trip instead of before the trip.
Yeah.
That's a big mistake a lot of people make. Yeah. And before you go out is when you're supposed to hydrate.
That morning, all I did was ate a bagel and with like peanut butter, didn't drink hardly anything. Running on
empty. Yeah. So Austin and I, we the first backpacking trip she ever did was Linville Gorge. That was with me. I took her on that trip. That was our first like trip together.
Whoa.
I took her out to Linville Gorge, which is one of the wildest places in North Carolina.
Whoa.
And it's actually one of the most dangerous places in the country.
Because your animals there, right?
Not just animals, but just how wild it is. It's super hard to get into. It's super hard to navigate.
Hazardous.
It's very hazardous. So this trip was 15 miles on foot, backpacking. You're carrying everything: your water, your food, your clothes, your tent, everything. And I've got the tent. Like we've got things like pretty well balanced.
You can pack a lot in those hiking bags. Yeah, I did have one of those.
You can. So there's 2 river crossings on this trip.
Yeah.
And when I say river crossings, I mean water that's up to your waist or up to your stomach.
But you still wade across.
Yeah, you're walking across, but it's up to your waist or stomach. It's high.
Yeah.
And so we did the first one. We get to the second one, which is actually more shallow than the first one, but the water's moving faster.
Yeah.
And we get there. I've done this hike probably 3 or 4 times by now, by the time I took her out there. And when you get to the second crossing, off to the left, the water's very still.
Yeah.
It's not even moving at all, but it's super, super, super deep.
Oh, gosh.
And you've got this giant pack, right?
Yeah.
And you've been hiking for 2 days already. You're tired. That's not the path to go, especially if you're not a strong swimmer and especially if it's at the end of your hike. I know that the path to the right is faster, but it's more shallow. So it only goes up to about your knees, maybe just a hair bit
stronger
higher.
Current, though.
Much stronger current. Like you pick up your foot, and if you're not paying attention, you're going to get swept away. And so we get to this point, and Austin and I had only been dating for not even a year at this point.
Oh, wow.
This is in 2018, and it was in, I think, late April, early May. And freaking, we get out there, and I'm explaining to her how this is. She's like, no, I think we need to go this way. And I said, remember what I said earlier about when you're on the trail, you're kind of different
Oh
than
yeah.
when you're comfortable at home. I looked at her, I said, if you want to go that way, you go that way. I'm going to go the way I know works.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started going. Like I
Oh my God. Did she go the other way?
No, she followed me.
Okay.
And props to her, because again, this is her very first backpacking trip ever.
Yeah.
I think what kind of annoyed me a little bit is I've done it before. I've done it many times before, and I know this worked. And it's like, I could not convince her that this was the correct way to go. She just wouldn't have it. But she ended up following me. And it got to the point where she was so tired that she couldn't move. Like, we're in the middle of this river.
Oh man.
She's so tired, but every time she picks her foot up, her foot starts to get swept away, and she's scared to move. Totally understandable.
Yeah.
Totally get it, especially if it's your first trip. This is a trail that is rated like extremely difficult.
Yeah.
It's not intermediate. It's not hard. It's extremely difficult.
When I went out and felt how a normal part of the river felt current wise, I was surprised how strong it was. And this was when it was calm.
Yeah.
And my mind went to what are like strong currents like.
So we're halfway through this river. I'm in front of her by maybe like 5 or 6 feet. I'm not too far in front of her.
She's like, hold up.
But in this river, it seems like forever because of how strong the water is. You got a pack on your back. You're tired. The water's cold.
Yeah.
And I turn around because she's like, Austin, I can't go any further. And I looked at her and I said, you have to. You can't. We're in the middle of a river. You have to go. You have to go.
Yeah.
So
you could take a breath, but
I backtracked to her. Well, you can take a breath,
but you're
still fighting the current just to stand there.
So you're exhausting, you're exuding energy just
standing there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I had been practicing something I learned when I was in the Army to cross rivers, where if it's a strong current, what you don't do is pick up your foot from the riverbed and place it down, because when you pick it up, that's where the current will take your foot, because it's now a larger object and it's going to get pushed downstream. You're not going to have that much control.
Do you drag?
Yes. So what you do is we've got hiking poles. And what you do is you take your hiking pole and you find that crevice in between rocks. And the way that you do that is you jam the end of the hiking pole into the ground until it can't move. And you're not like digging into the bed or anything. Yeah. You're just getting it stuck in between rocks. And then you slide that corresponding foot, so left pole, left foot, to where that pole's at. Now, you're not reaching far out. Yeah. You're doing it. It's very tedious and it's very slow.
But that's smart.
But you're sliding your foot to it. Now, obviously, you're going to have to go up and around rocks and stuff like that. But you're keeping constant contact with that rock.
Yeah.
That way you don't slip. You don't slide. Your foot's not getting carried away. You're not going to get tilted or anything.
Wow.
So I walk back to her. And I'm like, okay, there's 2 ways we can do this. You can stand here. I will go to the other side, drop my pack, come back, get your pack, and then I'll walk with you back.
Yeah.
Or we can just, I taught her that technique, and we finished it up. And that's what we did.
Whoa.
And once we got to the other side, we were exhausted, jelly legs.
Yeah.
We still had another 3 or 4 miles to hike out.
Wow.
And we just kind of sat on the opposite end of the river, on the opposite side, on that bank of rocks. And we just kind of took it in. I've still got this picture where it's she and I standing next to each other, and we're just kind of pointing over our shoulder. And in the background, in between our heads, is where we crossed. No one knows what that is aside from us, or if I have.
And now I want to look at that, because now I know the story behind it.
I've got a video of that she took of me crossing the first crossing too. You can actually see how deep the water is. I've got pictures of that.
Whoa.
But camping's one of those things that just. I love it. I love it.
I loved it. I did love it. Yeah.
So look, let's go back to
your story is just like something that happened with where talking about how your personalities change, and or like also what I mean is like moments where a decision can be made of how you want to approach something. There's a lot of moments like that, and one of them was that your story reminded me of when we came. This is halfway through the trip. It's like day 2, and Nate, he is the navigator. He's the one that planned the trip, scouted it, had the GPS map the whole time, and as well as a printed map in case he ever loses signal.
Good man.
He did. He was amazing. He said, "Hey guys, we got a shortcut right here. Let's take it." Me being first time out there, me being the guy who has seen way too many scary movies goes like,
but a ding, 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 ding.
I was like, we should stay on the main river. He's like, I'm telling you, it is a shortcut. We'll save maybe 45 minutes if we go through here, 30 to 45 minutes. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't. And he's like, well, it's okay. And I was like, okay. So it turns out but in that moment, I had this overwhelming feeling of like, if I don't put my foot down and say that this is a mistake, we're going to be lost out here. It was like your mind goes to the worst scenario.
That's interesting. So aside from that, was there any other situations where you were just so... I don't want to say uncomfortable. What was it like for you to sleep in a tent?
All right. I'm so
excited. Tell me the sleeping arrangement. Were you guys like sharing tents or?
Yeah. Multiple moments where I was uncomfortable on this trip.
Sure.
Not just at night, but especially at night. So my first time camping in a tent, the way we had it set up, Nate was in a hammock. He wanted to be outdoors under the night sky, and he was in the hammock. He had a net for the bugs.
Yep.
Grant was in a cot, military style cot. It was so cool. And
I'll tell you what, when you're in a canoe, bring the cot. It's totally worth it.
He popped that thing open, draped the net thing over it, and he had it made. And then he was such a comforting presence because he's a tall, muscular guy, and I felt like he is the one that could get us through some shit if something went wrong. Anyway.
Hey, first cuss word on the podcast. First cuss word in 10 episodes.
Yes.
Yeah, it came from Will. That's kind of surprising.
You know what?
It's all good.
Look up clinking eyes. No.
That's true. That's true.
That just came right out.
Yeah, you did. So you're describing him, and I immediately thought of Chris Hemsworth in Cabin in the Woods.
Yes, that's exactly his character.
But he dies in the most
that's true
silly
too.
way possible. Anyways, go ahead.
Yes. Excuse my curse word there. We can maybe do a beep. That'd be fun. All right. Anyway, so
I'm the one editing it. Yeah, it's so fun. Go ahead.
We'll cut that. No, he was a comforting presence. Anyway, he was in the cot. Dylan and I, who are the least experienced out of everyone there.
Yep.
Dylan has a little bit more than me, but I was definitely the least experienced. But Dylan and I were in a 3-person tent, and a 3-person tent is a 2-person tent.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was not a whole lot of room. Like, we were touching elbows almost the whole time. So, but basically, at night, our first night, we were in, here's the river. Here's us. Here's deep woods. So we can hear the river next to us. We can see the river, but right next to us is just thick, deep woods. And we, it was actually a campground. There was a cement slab, and we all set up on top of it. There was a spot where a pit for a fire. You could tell people had used it before.
Yeah.
So that was comforting.
Yeah. Very
when
cool.
we were setting up the campsite, I was like, oh man, I don't need to be scared.
Yeah.
The noises at night in the woods are terrifying. First off, I don't know why trees want to just stop standing and fall at night. I don't hear trees fall during the day, and at night they're just literally cracking open and falling over. My mind goes straight to dinosaurs for some reason.
I would think Bigfoot, but okay.
Yeah, but like you think some big creature's knocking trees over.
His name is literally Bigfoot, but
he's kicking them over. But I was shocked how many branches snap and fall at night. Anyway,
totally.
Of course, you're hearing different animals and stuff. There was one moment where in the middle of the night at like probably 4 a.m, we heard bang, the loudest gun noise, and it startled all of us awake. Someone out there hunting. But
it's not hunting season, by the way, but somebody's hunting something.
Okay.
Yeah.
What got me the most was at around probably midnight. We had all went to sleep, but it was like, all went to bed. But you got that vibe that like none of us were in deep sleep yet because we've been listening to the noises and stuff.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I heard footsteps. And you could hear them clearly because we're on a cement slab, elevated.
Yeah.
I heard footsteps. So I first just listened, like thump, 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 thump. And I heard rustling, like in the bags, our luggage. So I was like, luggage, our camp gear.
Yeah.
I don't know what some like calling it
you're good.
luggage sounded funny. And so I was like, hey Grant, is that you moving? And then all of a sudden I heard, huh? And I was like, Grant, is that you moving right now? And he was like, no, I'm laying right now. I'm laying down right now. And then I was like, hey, Nate. And Nate, who's further away in the hammock, he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, so that's not you either. And I unzipped and I looked out. And there's no one there. But it was footsteps.
Probably a raccoon.
So, yeah,
Probably
could have been a raccoon.
Or
but it's so quiet yet so loud.
So
everything is loud.
Yeah, I'm going to give you some insight when it comes to trying to identify things that are moving around in the woods. Yeah. It's always good to know how humans stop. Animals don't unless they have a reason to. Even deer.
Yeah.
Because if they don't know that you're there, they may notice that something's different, but they may not quite know what's going on. Humans, being the creatures that we are, we like to know what's going on. So if you've ever played games in the woods or anything like that, what'll happen most of the time is that you're running, you're moving, then you'll just freeze. You'll just stop. But you're not doing anything. You're not eating, you're not drinking, you're not doing anything.
Looking around.
Deer will go down and they'll eat. You'll hear them. You hear them moving leaves, stuff like that. Squirrels, you'll hear it sounds like really quick stuff like.
If they pause, it's short too.
Right, it's very short.
Yeah.
Humans don't do that. Humans will stop and they'll stay there. And that's so. I'm so glad that you brought this up because nighttime in the woods, if you're not used to it, is terrifying.
I mean, it
is one of the most scary things.
Oh my gosh,
you can experience because you're just not used to it, and your mind runs wild.
I love the Blair Witch Project. It's one of my favorite scary movies, and I've watched it many times. So my mind goes there. Of course, I'm thinking, what are these, and also like. Animal noises, you think you have an idea of what animal noises are, and then when you hear them at night, you're like, I don't know what animals are.
Yeah.
I heard one noise, I was like, and I was like, what is that? What is that?
So that is so good. I went camping. So I was probably in middle school, 7th or 8th grade, something like that. I went camping with a bunch of other boys from church and their dads. So it was father-son camp trip.
Yeah.
We're all around the same age. We're pretty young. And it was nighttime the first night, and all the dads had gone to bed, like in the tents or in their trucks or wherever they're sleeping. And all the boys are still awake. We're all still awake around the fire. We're just talking and having fun. And we're out there, and we heard screaming. Like just straight screaming from the darkness of the woods.
Are we talking a man or woman?
Don't know.
That's even scarier because it's just. Oh my gosh!
It was just screaming.
I was about to scream into the mic.
Woods.
Okay.
And so, especially when you have a fire, you think that fire is just super comforting.
No.
And it is.
It is.
It is when you've been hiking.
But
for a
then
long
you
time.
start to think others can see us,
and that's the thing. So you can't see beyond what the fire illuminates, but everything else that's looking towards fire can see you. So
that
it's
forest looked dark when we looked at it. Yeah,
it does. When you're using a flashlight or a fire or something like that, anything that's not illuminated is black. It's just black. So we're sitting around this fire, and it was already starting to die down because we were just letting it die before we went to sleep.
Yeah.
And we just hear this. It sounds like a child almost screaming, and we're looking around, and we're like, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, we're taking a head count. Everybody's here.
Smart.
Everybody's here. It's too high pitched to be a dad. Dads aren't playing a prank or anything like that. We heard probably 2 or 3 screams. They were getting closer as each one would happen, but then we never heard another one after that. And then we never heard any movement or anything. We just kind of retreated back into the tents. And we had these giant tents that dads had for
and when you're younger too.
Yeah. So there was 5 or 6 of us in one tent with ample space, and then there's another tent with 4 or something like that. And we get up the next morning, and we're just kind of walking around the edges of the campsite, see if we can see anything. We're not going to find anything. And then we mentioned something about it to one of the dads who was an avid hunter, and he said, "Oh yeah, that was a bobcat. You heard your first bobcat."
Whoa!
And this is in central North Carolina. I think we were out near Jordan Lake somewhere.
Yeah.
And which for those of you who don't know, Jordan Lake's a huge body of water in the middle of North Carolina, central North Carolina. And a bobcat is very rare
Yeah.
especially in that part of North Carolina. But that's what their calls sound like. They just sound like a scream. They sound like something screaming. It was terrifying.
Oh my gosh.
If you don't know what you're hearing, it is a terrifying sound. Now, like we can walk out in my backyard right now. It's nighttime. We can walk out in my backyard right now, and I know I'll hear at least 2 different owls that are in the woods right behind my house. It is the coolest sound.
I love it.
I love hearing them.
Me
it's
too.
So freaking cool.
They're amazing creatures, and whenever we heard an owl, we would all stop each other talking about, hold up, listen. Owl.
And and there's something about that. There's something about getting back into nature and being in that environment that for me at least, that it's like it really, really taps into my heart and soul. Like
it centers you.
It really does. It brings me back to a simpler lifestyle or a simpler frame of mind almost. But I've been so busy lately, and my wife, God bless her, she's been trying to just get me to go camping. I'm gonna plan a trip to Shackleford Banks and camp out there again with the horses.
Yeah.
And I'm probably gonna record the trip as well. And I'm glad I'm saying all this in a public forum because it's gonna push me to do it.
Yes.
But
that's smart.
Quit putting it off. But
have you done some solo stuff before, or is it mostly with someone else?
No, I've done tons of solo camping. Cool. I like camping with somebody else, but I do like solo camping too. Camping with someone, I get less bored, especially when I make camp. When you make camp and you don't have something to do, that's some of the most boring times you're ever going to have, because you can only eat dinner once. Yeah. And then you're just waiting for the sun to go down to get in your tent and go to sleep. And you don't want to spend too much time in your tent if you don't have a good tent, because it's going to be hot. Yeah. Like if you don't have good cross
temperatures, dude,
you're going to suffer. Yeah.
It's so cold. So cold.
Really?
I didn't
even think about it, did you?
So Jen,
did you end up getting a sleeping mat?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Jen gave me hers.
Cool. Good.
She had a sleeping mat, and then gave me hers, and it was great. Her sleeping bag she gave me, and it was great. It was because I couldn't find mine, and then
that's so sad.
But
I've got a bag right there with all my gear in it, and then I've got another one under my bed with extra gear in it.
Well, that's good to know. Because,
seriously, you should have just asked.
It's funny. We went on a trip and to the store, and it was fun buying all the stuff that I didn't have, but I was pretty prepared because a few years ago I got in my head that I'm going to be a nature guy. I went and I bought everything I needed. So we went out and bought what I didn't have, but I was pretty prepared, and I thought to myself, I'm hot blooded. I'm like, I'm not going to get cold, babe. Jen was like, I don't know. And I said, I'll be okay. She's
a very wise woman.
Oh, she is. And that night, the first night, I woke up multiple times shivering. Yep. Literally shivering. Yep. And I put socks on. That helped a lot. For some reason, I went to sleep barefoot. Don't do that. And that
definitely change your socks. Don't go to bed with wet socks. Definitely change your socks, but I don't go to sleep barefoot ever.
No, that's you. Your heat is just
you just bleed heat. It was something where at night and Nate and I talked about this, because Nate and I are very similar, where we love a thrill. We love scary stuff because it's exciting. And he told me, we were talking about the strange noises we had heard the morning after we were all talking, and Nate was like, once we got in the canoe and it was just him and I, because him and I shared the canoe. He was in the front and I was in the back. I was going to ask how many canoes we had. So 2 canoes. 2
canoes, doubles.
Okay.
And I was in the back, and I love being in the back because, number one, I get to see everything in front of me, and I'm not going to get startled by the shakiness.
That's a good
Multiple times I moved to adjust myself, and Nate was like, whoa, what are you doing?
Yeah, totally.
And I am not very agile, so I was like, I'm going to be in the back. Yeah. And it's fun because the guy in the back does a lot of you do all the drag and that's fun. But when we got alone in the canoe, we were like, he turned around and he was like, hey, you know how we were talking about all the scary noises we heard last night? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, it's crazy. He was like, you loved it, didn't you? And I was like, I did. I loved it. Yeah, it's exciting.
It is. Yeah. It is. And you had mentioned sleeping next to the river and getting to listen to the river. Yeah. In Linville Gorge, that's one of the best things about camping right off the river. There's a lot of established campsites where people have camped there. They got great views or close access to water, that kind of thing. and all you hear is the river.
Yeah.
And your mind goes to you'd mentioned Blair Witch, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you're thinking of other scary movies that you've seen when it comes to camping. For me, my mind goes to my experiences in the military and training exercises where you do not want to camp directly next to a river because you can't hear a damn thing.
Whoa, that's a good point.
So if you don't, so if I'm, when
Yeah.
you're with a platoon sized group, obviously you have a sentry, you've got people who are awake, 50% on, 50% asleep. So out of 40 guys, 20% or 50% are sleeping, the other 50% are awake, and then you swap.
Yeah.
And when you're by yourself, you don't have that. So me being the hyper aware person that I am, any sound, any noise whatsoever wakes me up. And it's not like I'm in a panic or anything. I just wake up. I just lay there. I'll wake up and kind of go, what is that? Okay, all right, I'm good. And I'll go back to sleep.
Yeah.
But that's why if I can avoid it, I don't actually sleep directly next to loud bodies of water.
That's smart.
And nothing's ever happened. I've been camping for years. Nothing's ever happened. But it's that there are plenty of stories.
Yeah.
Like on the AT, there's been several murders on the Appalachian Trail. Many murders. Where hikers have killed other hikers, or people have come in from small towns that are right off the trail, gone up to a shelter where a couple people are sleeping, boom, boom, killed them both, go back to town. That's happened.
That's horrifying.
Stories. It is. There's several stories that way. And so, but then also you have to kind of remember, how difficult was it for me to get down into the gorge? How difficult would it be for somebody else to do the same?
That's a good point.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
And, when I camp, I do carry a gun with me.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And
Nate had his, because it was like, you got to have some means
I was going to
of
say,
protection.
it's not for animals, it's for people.
Yeah.
It's for people. And it's sad to say, but that's the environment that we live in these days.
There was a comfort to how far away we were, too. There was moments where you think to yourself, oh my gosh, we're completely alone in the middle of nowhere. And in that moment, you're like, oh my gosh, that's scary. And then you quickly realize, wait, we're alone in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
This is so safe. Like we feel really
absolutely.
good. And then so you would flip back and forth with that. And also what I found was wild is when you just told me that about the noise of a river, both the first and second night, we were right next to the river or on the river. I got to tell you about our second night.
I'm really excited.
But both nights we had the noise of the river, and yet I still thought it was crazy quiet. Now I'm wondering, how quiet is it in the middle of the woods? It must be insane. Like so quiet.
It most definitely is, but it also makes you kind of wonder, how much noise pollution are we exposed to on a daily basis?
Oh my gosh.
And when you kind of take yourself out of that kind of environment, that's how it always should be.
Yeah.
It should be that quiet all the time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's one of the
It's
reasons
just
why
weird because we're not used to it.
It is. That's one of the reasons why I love going outside right after a recent snowfall.
Oh,
Snow dampens and absorbs sound waves. So that's why it's so quiet after it snows.
It's honestly a therapy. It's like
I love it. Yeah.
The mix of the dead quietness and then the crunch of your feet on the snow. It's one of the most naturally relaxing things in the world.
I fully plan to go winter camping this year, and I truly hope I can get out in the snow and snow camp for the first time ever. I've winter camped before. I've winter camped in November. I've done it once in November, once in December. I don't think I've done it in January, February before, but I've done it in November and December before, and that wasn't. I mean, it wasn't awful or anything. It was pretty fun, but I'd love to do it in the snow.
Oh my gosh.
Specifically, that would be amazing.
That would be. I think of there was a great movie called Jeremiah Johnson.
Yeah, I just watched it 3 weeks ago, maybe.
It's a good movie.
Oh, it's such a good movie.
Such a good movie. But there's some
so
good
much.
snow nature scenes in that.
Oh yeah, he almost dies a couple times from the snow. It's such a good movie, though.
I would say the closest
Jeremiah
thing
Johnson.
we've got to Jeremiah Johnson since then was The Gray, as well as Revenant. I'm talking about it when it comes to like setting.
Yeah, totally.
Not story, but you know what I mean.
No, for sure. I would say if you want a good man, so it's a YouTube channel called The Outdoor Gear Review, and I think I've talked about it before.
Yeah.
The gentleman's name is Luke, and he does a lot of winter camping. He's got some really good ones that are like military surplus camping trips, and they're in like 2 or 3 feet of snow in western North Carolina and Western Virginia.
Would you get a specialty tent for those?
You get a 4-season tent. Yeah.
Okay.
So you've got 3-season tents and you have 4-season tents. So 3-season tents are your spring, summer, fall. 4-season tents are for winter.
Whoa.
They're much heavier.
Yeah.
They've got.
You don't feel the temperature underneath you.
You don't feel wind. That's the difference. So the difference is the amount of airflow it blocks. So your 4th-season tents are going to retain a lot of heat for sure. They are going to have a lot more condensation, unfortunately, if they're single wall tents. That's why I always recommend getting a double wall.
Yeah,
going to be a little more heavy.
Yep.
But totally worth it with no condensation on the inside of the tent. Your 4-season tents have either a wind cover or snow cover is what it's called, or it just has less mesh, and that's to prevent wind and air from moving through. Typically, your rain fly is going to go all the way down to the ground, whereas with a 3-season, you're going to have a bigger gap from the ground to the bottom of the fly.
That's really cool. Because my mind went straight to how are you going to set up on snow, much less thick
it's
snow.
Super easy. It's super easy. It's just like camping in the sand. Except it's cold.
I think the
sand and snow are typically equated to be very similar when it comes to camping.
Yeah. It's the tent is something that is not what I expected. You imagine
Interesting.
What I think, because when you watch TV or movies in scenes inside tents, they have all their stuff, their light, they're talking to each other, and they seem kind of cozy in their tent. Yeah. And really, it's more like, okay, we're in the tent. Good night. Like this isn't like a hangout.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
There's no like back and forth. It's very little of that. Even when I'm with Austin, because when you're camping, especially when you're hiking, you're exhausted.
Yeah,
it's a chore to do anything, especially when you're making camp. So
when you get horizontal, finally,
you do. Yeah, seriously, you do as little as you possibly can. I want to hear about you guys the second night, but
we got plenty of time.
I want to, and again, with this being a 2-parter, in the second part, we're just going to dive right into stories, and that way, we don't have a whole lot of setup. But anyway, even with it when it's with Austin, it's like you said, as soon as you go horizontal, you just want to be asleep. You just want to rest. And when we were out on Shackelford Banks the first time we camped out there, we were in a ultralight 2-person backpacking tent, which so ultralight tents are way smaller than your like tents with poles and all that stuff.
It's hard to imagine.
Because of weight.
That's hard to imagine tents being that much smaller.
They're stupid small. Like when you call an ultralight 2-person tent a 2-person tent, like you're saying with your 3-person, you guys are rubbing elbows. We are on each other.
You're cuddled
We're
up.
on top. Yeah. Thankfully, she and I were
above you. How much space before the ceiling?
You can sit up, but you're still bent over.
Okay.
So if I'm sitting on my butt on top of my air mattress or my backpack, my sleeping pad. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm sitting up, but I'm kind of leaned forward just a little bit, so I don't rub my head on the top of the tent.
Would it be faster to set up too?
Yeah, because with the particular tent that I'm talking about, it doesn't have any poles. You use your hiking poles to pitch the tent.
That's cool.
And then you stake out the corners, and that when you stake it out, it pulls taut, and that's what gives it
taut.
Yeah, right. You pull it taut.
Tight.
That's what gives it its form.
I love that.
Yeah, it's all about how tight you pull your poles, and then the guy lines off the poles.
We speaking of tents, the second time we set up our tent, Dylan was like, uh-oh. And I was like, what? He's like, there's a rock jammed inside of the pole, so I can't get and we did everything we could, and we could not get that pebble out of that. And anyway, we never that's not true. You bicker a little bit with each other.
You're going to. Absolutely, you are.
like you're communicating with the person in front of you. When you're in the back of the canoe, the person in the front will holler out like, oh, left, right, slow it down. And so it takes them getting used to that. And Nate and I did a good job with that. But it's so funny, getting out of a river is one of the hardest things you will ever experience.
Yep.
Mud is insane.
Yep.
And what's crazy is you think you know about mud, but when you see mud, you're like, oh, okay, there's mud, but I can step on that. And then you step in it and it's to your knees or to your waist.
Yep, absolutely.
It's frightening.
Yeah.
I got everyone got, our first night was set up in this great spot, but because of the mud, it was a pain in the butt to get up on top of this hill where the campground was. And everyone else, all of us got all of our stuff out, no problem. Dylan and I brought mud boots, and they came in handy a lot. I'm glad I did that. But I realized I left something. So we were all set up at the camp, and I was like, guys, I got to go back to the canoe and get something. And everyone was like, good luck,
Yeah.
And I went and I got the stuff out, no problem. And there's this one spot where the mud's the worst. And the first time we all avoided it, we were like, don't step there. I stepped in it and it went up to my thigh, right where like your crotch starts.
Yeah.
And it was horrible.
Wow.
I was completely under mud from like basically the waist down. And I just started yelling. I was like, help, help. And all of them.
Will needs help.
Yeah. It was so funny because I was like, help. And then they called out, you okay? I was like, nope.
I was like, maybe he doesn't though. Maybe he doesn't need help.
But
I like how that somebody's thought process is like, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't.
For some reason, everyone was like, you good? And I'm like, no, that's why I'm yelling.
Yeah.
They had to come over and pull me out, but like,
did you lose the boot?
No, I don't know how I didn't lose the boot.
Yeah,
it was
luck.
insane. So what I did was, I kind of pulled my foot up like this,
Yep.
and I lifted it a little ways, reached down into the mud with my hand, and like held the boot as I pulled it out.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I got the boot out, I took them off and threw the boots, because you don't just simply.
Was it just out of anger?
Yeah, out of anger and like
Stupid boots. You didn't keep me out of this mud.
Mud boots are perfect for mud until they're under mud, and then you're in a worse spot than you. Anyway,
That's so funny.
I scraped the mess out of after the trip. My feet looked like they had been hit with a weed whacker.
Yeah,
For some reason,
totally.
your feet just get really scratched up, I guess, when you do canoeing. I wore those sort of water shoes a lot.
Yeah.
And I think walking on, I don't know, I scratched the mess out of my feet. I didn't get bit by bugs at all. I did so good with the bug spray. Granted, I was using like 90% DEET, like the hardcore stuff. So
I mean, just don't ingest it. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
You're not
do
supposed to drink that? Oh my god! It said citrus on it. You need vitamin C.
What?
Real quick on the bug thing. Do you know what we did in the military to keep bugs off of?
What?
Because we didn't have bug spray all the time.
Oh snap! I never thought about that. What do y'all do?
You know what we did? So what you do, and
does it involve urine?
No, it does not involve urine. What a great question. No, it doesn't. So I don't know if this is actually true or not, but the logic of it makes sense to me. So what we did was in MREs, you get a little book of matches. Ooh. And what you do is you bite the head off the match and you swallow it like a pill.
Yeah.
Not those kinds of matches.
Okay.
Don't do it with that. That's wood. The matches that come in MRE are waterproof, but they're kind of like cardboard.
Whoa.
But the tip is like a phosphorus match.
Yeah.
But the rest of it's like cardboard. That way you can easily tear it. It's flat. Easy to, not a lot of weight, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
What you do is you take the match head and you just bite off one every hour or so.
Yeah.
And you swallow the tip.
You're joking.
Like a pill. No. And the idea is you're sweating out extra phosphorus. That smell keeps bugs away. Now,
that is incredible.
I did it every time I went to the field. I did it every time we were out, for any amount of time. And it worked. But also, I was always wearing long sleeves and pants. I was never not wearing long sleeves and pants.
So now you're thinking, did it really?
Like, I was just wearing long sleeves and pants all the time.
You're like, I got a really great trick for you.
I ate a bunch of match heads. I don't know if it worked or not. I think it worked. The logic of it made sense. And this is not something that we made up.
Yeah.
This is like common knowledge in the Army. Like, this is something all infantrymen do.
That's
at least
wild.
the young ones. If you don't have bug spray or repellent or anything.
Okay,
you can't wear stuff that has a ton of smell with it, you know?
Let's say someone wanted to use this trick, and they would have to they couldn't use any standard matchbox.
No. So first of all, don't do this because I'm not going to be held responsible for when you start eating matches. Secondly, if you're going to do it, they can't be. So I've got some matches here on my desk. We had some friends over, and the husband is also a military vet, Army vet, combat vet, actually, just like I am. So we do this once a month where we have this family over.
Oh, that's cool.
And he and I will hang out and we smoke cigars together.
I love it.
That's why I've got matches on my desk here. But this I don't know how well this can be seen on camera, but this is a standard Duraflame wooden match. Don't eat this.
Gotcha.
This is wood. This will do bad things to you.
It looks pretty good.
Don't eat it. I know it looks good. You're reminding me of Charlie right now. Like all the crazy things.
Dude, I eat matches
Charlie
all the time, dude.
Like, looks pretty good. I mean, nah. People eat matches. It's okay. Don't eat that. What we were snacking on were the matches that you get in like a matchbook.
Okay.
Like when you go to the gas station, you can ask for free matches. They give you a matchbook. It's that.
So I can eat those matches.
Don't eat matches, but yes, if you're gonna eat those, eat those matches.
So we also celebrated on our last night there with cigars. It was very nice.
Yeah. There's something that's just
so good. And but with your guy friends and all right. So I'll wait to tell it on part 2 because it'll lead into a whole second story. But I never have finished a cigar in my life.
Oh, really?
I get down to like right there, and I'm like, I don't really want to do this anymore. I don't. No. But it's a bummer because I want it to get to the length of a villain in a cartoon, like mafia guy.
You know what I want? I want to do the Swisher Sweets like Clint Eastwood in any Western he's in, where he's just got it tucked away in the back of his and he's just sitting there with it.
Gosh, it was
talk about intimidating.
Few dollars more. Yeah, the second one is the one where he would leave it. They tracked him because they saw it at his campsite. Them on purpose.
He was leaving them on purpose. Yep.
Gosh, it's such a good movie.
Yeah. Super cool.
Super cool, dude. You know what's funny? I think my favorite of the trilogy is the second one, actually.
Yeah.
I really love the second one. The first one it's honestly, the first and second one's probably tied for me.
It's the Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
The Good and Bad and Ugly is my least favorite, but I still love it. But the third one.
Look at the actual
So first one, let me see if I'm right. Well, you test me. All right. So the first one I think is Fistful of Dollars, and that's the only thing in the name.
I'm looking it up. Right
okay.
Now. Give me a sec.
And then, so Fistful of Dollars, that is the first one.
That's my favorite one.
Okay, that's your favorite. Yeah. Yep. And what's great about that is he like wanders into town and starts like helping people.
We talked about the, or is that the one where he's on a donkey and
yes.
Oh, okay.
And he's wearing that sick poncho.
Yes, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So that one's not my favorite. I do love that one though.
It's such a good second one is my favorite. It's the I think it's just called A Few Dollars More.
No, for
a few dollars more. Close. And then The Good and Bad and the Ugly is the third one. And for me, the third one, even though it has that epic final scene with the three of them giving each other the eyes and that shootout, to me, the third one, because they mix in a little bit more into the story about like there's like the ongoing war going on. Mm-hmm. They're like in one part they actually go into a battle and talk with some guy during the middle of a battle, I think. Yeah. It felt bigger, and I kind of liked the smaller story compared to the bigger story. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I love a Western could literally be a story about one dude just going into a town and getting in an argument, and I'll be like, this is amazing.
Yeah, Westerns are great. are quite literally our culture. Now, is it like a little bit exaggerated? Of course it is. Of course. It's a story, but it is distinctly American culture, and that's what I love about it. It's. I was watching The Pale Rider. Recently.
Yeah,
I've been on a Clint Eastwood kick recently.
Yeah,
I was watching Pale Rider recently, and same thing where it's just he's a preacher that comes into town, and he sees a guy getting beat up. He grabs a axe handle, beats the mess out of a bunch of dudes. He goes, nothing like a good. What does he say? Oh man. Nothing like a good cut of hickory or something like that. And I'm like,
talk about the handle.
Yeah, he's talking about the axe handle.
I love that.
Beat somebody down with.
And what's great about the westerns is like, so much of it takes place out in nature in the great outdoors. It's not just when they wander in a saloon. I love the just like them sit next to a fire and
and that's part of why I love camping so much, because it's so ingrained in our cultures. I mean, when you stop and think about America, it's not been around for very long.
No,
in the grand scheme of
so
nation building,
we forget this. People forget that we're new
because we've made so much progress so quickly. But I think that's why there's such a push in our culture these days of wanting to go back to that kind of lifestyle. A more simple lifestyle, less stuff,
less cold,
less technology, which I think is ironic.
Yeah.
But I love that. I love that idea. If I could, I would take my whole family. We'd move out into the mountains and just build a cabin on some land and live out there.
There's a great what you just said about going out, taking your family and living in a cabin, and how so many people are moving away from the cold technology driven society the way it is now, just all the stuff, the lifestyle difference. I rewatched a movie a few weeks ago that I hadn't seen since I saw it in theaters, and it was Oblivion with Tom Cruise.
Interesting one too.
So it was awesome. I think when I saw it in theaters, it is, and it's a completely original story, which I love. It's something that I felt like I hadn't seen before. But what's amazing is here is this future world where Tom Cruise is in his own spaceship. His day job is to fly around in this
super cool
vehicle. And he's got this futuristic gun. He's got this cool outfit. He lives in this mansion floating in the clouds. Everything about his life is so futuristic and cool. And all he wants to do is go down and hang out in a cabin by a lake. And he wants to get away from all of the, and he feels best when he is in, nature.
And we're getting, I think, at least a good part of our society is getting back to that, which I think is awesome.
It is good.
I think it's really cool. So we're at the end of part 1. It's been a little over an hour. Don't want to push this out too far because we're going to have part 2. So we're going to get right back into camping stories in part 2.
I have the second half of the journey to talk about.
Will's got so much stuff to tell us, and I've got so many questions to answer, apparently.
Yes.
So tune back in for part 2. It will be released in a couple weeks. We're going to get back into our normal release schedule. Summer's been kind of busy and very, very weird, especially with everybody getting sick and things like that. But we're going to get back into our normal schedule of releases and everything like that.
So excited.
We will see everyone next week. I'm going to hold off on. I tell you what, let's do a Willism.
Yeah.
Let's do some dad advice. I don't want to leave our listeners wanting. So, what's your Willism?
Eagles aren't as rare of a thing as you think they are. I saw eagles so much, I almost got annoyed by it. It got to the point on the river trip where we would be like, "Oh, look, an eagle," and then eventually, it got to a point where like my buddy was like, "I'm sick of these eagles. Like, let's see something else."
Eagles or something.
It was the first time I saw the eagle on the trip. I was like, "Whoa!" It glided over, so I was like, "America!" And then by the end of the trip, I had seen honestly like 10 sightings of eagles, and I was like, I did not know they were that prevalent. Eagles, they're amazing, but also a little overrated. Just kidding. They're not overrated.
Okay,
They're not overrated.
Anyway,
I'm just sick of them. I'm not sick of them.
There's an aquarium nearby where we live that has 2 eagles. And I want to see you go there and go, I'm sick of you guys. I'm sick of you.
You think you're hot stuff.
And there's gonna be a kid going, Mommy, why is he yelling at those sick eagles? Because they're sick.
The mom's gonna be like, it's a foreigner.
Anyway, he's a tourist.
Yeah.
Anyway, dad advice. Okay, you brought it up, so I'm gonna give you some dad advice. Will, This is for you. Always, always, always. I don't care if you're out on the coast. I don't care if you're on a river. I don't care if it's summertime. Always pack an extra jacket. Always, because it's going to get cold.
Yeah.
Always pack that extra jacket.
And you know what? It never ever will hurt to bring an extra jacket. You'll never go like, man, I hate I brought this.
It sucks when you don't have it.
Yeah.
But when you need it and have it, you're good. When you need it and don't have it, life sucks.
Gosh, dude.
Always, and that's for anything in life. If you think you need it, pack it.
Yeah.
Bring it, do it, whatever it is.
That is a dad quote right there.
100% it is. So, all right, we're gonna cut it there.
Yeah.
Next episode, part 2. So episode 10, part 2 comes out in 2 weeks, and we'll continue on with our camping tales.
Yeah. Have a good one.